The following is a member of the Berkreviews podcast family. Berkreviews.com.
What you want?
Top 5 movies. Top 5. Top 5 movies. Top 5 movies. Top 5 movies. Top 5 movies.
Hey everybody, welcome to Berkreviews Top 5 Movies. It's me, John Burke, with Corey Starr.
Hello, hello.
And unfortunately, on this Mother's Day that we're recording, Mike couldn't be here with us. But we have his list, so we will be talking about Mike's top 5. Corey, how's it going?
It's going. I just woke up not too long ago, so.
Behind the scenes, a little peek behind the curtain, if you will. Usually we record top 5 on Sundays at 7 p.m., but because it's Mother's Day, we started rearranging things, and then it still kind of didn't work out, but we're recording at 12 o'clock noon, Florida time, and Corey is in Idaho, so she literally just got woken up, basically, by my obnoxiousness of, hey, Corey, are you ready? Are you ready, Corey?
Oh, no.
But our top 5 topic for this week is directorial debut, so this is a director's first film. And this was a fun topic I found researching, because one, it gave me a chance to see how many directors made amazing first films, which was way more than I would have expected, actually.
Yes, and I was like, what am I doing with my life? Not that I want to make films, but you know what I mean? Like, we just watched, oh my gosh, Boogie Nights, and that was Paul Thomas Anderson's film debut.
Nope.
Oh, it was his second? Oh, that's right. But he was only 27 when he made this one.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, holy heck.
And that movie is considered by many a masterpiece, and it demonstrates his understanding of film at a far superior level than most 27-year-olds would have a grasp of, you know. Like his other film, we actually will be watching his debut in 2 weeks for Movie Club. You picked it. I can't remember what it's called. I think it's like Hard 8 or something like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that was not the original name of that film, apparently. They renamed that. But yeah, that's his debut. And then you have filmmakers like Edgar Wright, who's technically his film debut is Shaun of the Dead, but it's actually A Fistful of Fingers, I believe, is his debut, but it didn't do big numbers, nor was it a wide release, or I don't even think it got distribution. But that was his first feature film, which is supposed to be being re-released on Blu-ray this year, in fact. And
that's awesome.
I know, I cannot wait to get it. One, because I want to see all of his movies, but so technically his debut wasn't his debut, and so that's like one of the gray areas. We're not going to be too strict on our rules here. I feel like all of mine meet the criteria of this is the director's first feature film. And I have a lot of honorable mentions because it was very hard narrowing this down to 5, and I'm still not 100%. But Mike sent us his list, and Mike, I'll be reading his list. So Corey doesn't know either of our lists. I already know Mike's. And we did have one in common, but I changed it since I already knew his. So I wanted to be able to talk about 10 movies rather than 9 movies between the two of us. So if you've never listened to top 5 movies before, here's how this usually goes. We pick a topic, and we build our list in secret. And then we reveal our list to each other on the episode, and we poke fun, comment, make jokes, and or go, oh, how come I didn't think of that, as that is usually the case. Although this one definitely has a limited pool. Some of our topics are much more general, and it could be literally anything. It limits
take a lot of liberties.
Yeah, and this one limits severely what's available for you to pick from, as it has very specific criteria. But an important note before we move on, this is episode number 99, so we're almost at that big triple-digit break. This will be our first podcast that hits triple digits. We have slowed down our top 5 movies. We are doing bi-weekly. We originally started weekly, and so yeah, it's exciting that next week is going to be our episode 100. We've done this for almost 3. I think this is our 3rd year now that we're in. But yeah, it's crazy to think that, this started just a couple years ago, and all of these episodes have come and gone already. And we have a lot more to come. So we hope if you like what we're doing that you will keep listening, tell your friends about us, comment, email, let us know what you think. And of course, if you really love what we're doing and you want to help us out, we have a Patreon available. You can do as little as $1 a month, and as much as you want, but there's all sorts of goals and rewards that I'm revising, trying to figure out what's the best thing we can offer our listeners. I want to make it enticing. I'm not asking for handouts, I'm not sitting on the corner just asking to give me your spare change, but this is something that we love doing, and we currently don't have an income coming in, and would love to have something to regenerate the expenses, just so we can keep this going for the years to come. So if you like our content, you want to support, hit us up on patreon.com/Berkreviews, or go to berkreviews.com and click on the link to Patreon. All right, enough of the business stuff. Corey, what do you got to tell them?
Guys, from here forward, we're going to be talking about these movies, probably in great detail. Spoiler warnings, you've been warned. And you can go to berkreviews.com and check out each of our top 5 lists before proceeding.
That's right, folks. And you can check the show notes, too, if your podcast app supports that. Usually it's flip to the left or scroll up, and it'll show you details of the episode, and our top 5 list is included in that as well. So, the other thing we do, now I can't participate because I'm looking at Mike's list, but we usually like to take a guess of how many of Mike's movies have we seen. I'm looking at his list, and I know exactly how many I've seen of his. So, Corey, how many of Mike's top 5 do you think you have seen?
Ooh, that's hard. Because I feel like I've seen a lot of, well, not a lot, but a good amount, but also Mike tends to, watch things I've never even heard of. I'm gonna go with 2.
Oh, 2, okay. Now that you've said your guess, I'm gonna say I have seen 2 of the movies on his list. I have seen 2, so you have a very good chance, I think, of getting this. I actually think you might have seen 3, but there's one on here that I've not seen.
Okay.
But I'm not 100% of that, so we'll have to wait and see how that goes. But, alright, Mike's going to start us off. So, Mike's not here. I'll be reading his list, then me, then Corey, and we rotate until we get to our number 1s. So, Mike's number 5, and I'm going to pull it up, because I actually am not super familiar with this movie, other than it has been on one of Mike's lists in the past. And it is Decline of Western Civilization. Directorial debut of Amy Heckerling. Make sure I have the right movie. That is not the right movie. Amy... Oh, wait, I'm wrong. I have the right movie. I read the wrong name. Sorry, Mike. I've already ruined this whole thing.
Because I was like, I thought that was...
Yep, I've ruined his number 4. Number 5 is Penelope Spheris. And I'm not sure I'm saying that right, but it looks like it. Decline of Western Civilization. And to any listener who likes to criticize my pronunciation of names, telling me that I should get the pronunciation before the episode, I literally got this list from Mike 2 minutes before we started recording. I did not have time to look up these names, but Decline of Western Civilization has a 93 Metascore, which is only from 9 critic reviews, but still, that's pretty high. 7.7 user review. The Los Angeles punk music scene, circa 1980, is the focus of the film, with Alice Bag Band, Black Flag, Catholic Discipline, Circle Jerks, Fear, Germs, etc. It's a documentary history music about punk, and Mike has talked about this film before, I think maybe in our music movie episode or something, but I still haven't seen it, and it's one that, obviously this has got this director quite a bit of a career, I think. I hope I didn't just jump the gun. Oh, yeah, because she ends up later directing Wayne's World, which is one of my favorite movies.
I just rewatched that.
But,
yeah. Oh my gosh, if you look at her, she kind of looks like Garth.
What?
Just the glasses and the hair.
Dude, she totally does. That's awesome. Corey, have you ever seen Decline of Western Civilization?
I have not.
This is a movie that I feel like you and I would both love, and for some reason we haven't seen it. I am a fan of docs. I know you tend to avoid documentaries.
I make special exceptions for music ones, though.
Yes, music ones generally are far more engaging, and they don't have to pay for music licensing usually because they're covering...
Oh.
Well, they're working with the band, so they usually get access to that music because they're working with the bands. Not all, but many of them do. The bands, they want that. They want that exposure. Like, yeah, please use our songs so people can hear us and continue to listen to us. But, I just saw the Godfathers of Hardcore documentary at the Florida Film Festival with my daughter, and I never heard of Agnostic Front. They were a 80s hardcore band that they're still touring today. And I've never really been I wouldn't say I'm against hardcore, but I've never really, I guess, listened to that genre. And man, just like hearing their music and kind of seeing them play and stuff, I was hooked, and so was my daughter. So, music documentaries like this definitely interest me. I'm gonna have to see if this one's available digitally.
Do it.
All right. Well, that was Mike's number 5, Penelope Spheris, Decline of Western Civilization from 1981. Mine is also from the 80s. My first one, my number 5. And it's from a director who I'm not a fan of now so much, but I was a big fan of his early work, and so it makes sense that his debut won me over, in fact, and I would argue is probably the best of the franchise. Now, he did several shorts, several shorts. Well, now I'm questioning if this is accurate. I'm looking at IMDb, and there's another feature-length film, it looks like, on the list, even though the Wikipedia thing that I was using to find my content had this movie listed as his debut. So, somebody is wrong, but I'm going to go with it anyways, Corey. Don't shoot the messenger. I'm going with Sam Raimi from 1981, The Evil Dead, which is, I love Evil Dead 2, and I love the Army of Darkness, excuse me. But Evil Dead scared the living crap out of me when I saw it the first time. And I went in thinking it was going to be funny based on what I heard of Army of Darkness and Evil Dead 2, not realizing that this movie is a straight-up horror film. This is not a horror comedy. That's not to say you don't laugh at some of the crazy stuff that happens, because there's lots of fake blood. The monster says some screwed up stuff that is pretty, like, it's darkly funny. But I love this first film. Like, they retcon everything that happens in this movie in Evil Dead 2, but the legend of this film, too, that they went into the woods for a weekend, just, like, basically skeleton crew. It's like Raimi, the 5 actors that we see in the movie, and then I think maybe a couple of other people for the crew, and that's it. Like, buckets of fake blood. Like, there's, like, a legend behind them filming this. They literally went into a cabin in the middle of the woods and made a horror film. And it's great. It's excellent. There's so many things that, like, for a first feature, and again, I am now debating whether or not this is truly Sam Raimi's first feature or not, because there's a movie called It's Murder from 1977 that looks like it is a feature. I don't know if it was ever distributed. Maybe it was released after Evil Dead, like, to the public. Like a retrospective kind of thing. Like, a band will re-release their first, like, local album when they get big kind of thing. I don't know for a fact, much like I just mentioned with Fistful of Fingers, though. But I love so many of Raimi's early stuff. I love Evil Dead 2. I actually like Darkman. Army of Darkness is great. I like The Quick and the Dead. And then he does Spider-Man, and I loved Spider-Man when it came out. I have soured severely on the Spider-Man trilogy from Raimi. And he basically hasn't done anything super noteworthy. Some people like Drag Me to Hell. I didn't love it.
I liked it a lot.
Oz the Great and Powerful I wasn't super hooked on. I still need to watch Ash vs. Evil Dead. I'm sure I will love those. Those I believe are season 1 and 2 are on Netflix, but I actually bought both the box sets.
They just canceled it, didn't they?
Oh, on Stars? Did they?
I think so.
Oh,
I could be lying.
Well, I still want to watch the seasons that are out. I own season 1 and 2. I just have to actually sit and watch it, which will be something I probably do this summer. But I think Evil Dead is a really great example of what you can do on a almost no budget with a group of people who are dedicated to making a movie that's well structured. It's entertaining. It definitely hits on the horror genre, and it holds up. Almost 40 years later, it's still really great. Still one that I try to watch every Halloween because I love it. So that's my number 5. Sam Raimi's The Evil Dead.
It's a great pick, and I love that movie. And I watched those movies in high school is when I first was introduced to them, and actually Bill's mom bought me Evil Dead on DVD way back in the day. But I really love those movies, and I did like Drag Me to Hell, and I just remember walking out of the theater and somebody's like, what was this? They were trying to like mix comedy and horror, and I'm like, you've obviously not seen any of his other films, man.
Yeah.
Walk on. But I feel like that's a great pick, and I'll go to my number 5.
Okay, what's your number 5?
I'm going with Jean-Pierre Jeunet. I'm saying that wrong probably, but Delicatessen.
Yes.
Genois. Thank you. From 1991. I love this movie, and this is one of those movies that I wanted to watch just because of the cover. I did not know that he also directed Amelie, which we both watched for Movie Club and loved, but I just really love so much about Delicatessen. It's so ridiculous. It's a black comedy.
Big time.
Just think it's so great. The storyline is, I can't think of any other movie that I've really seen before that has done something like that and made it comedic, but that's my number 5.
That's a really cool pick, and I didn't even think about that one. And it's interesting because, to be fair, I think you have to give credit to the other guy too. Mark Caro is his co-director on this film, and they do another movie, The City of Lost Children, which I just saw a couple of months ago.
And you really liked that, right?
I did, yes. It's not as, I don't love it as much as Amelie or Delicatessen, but it's definitely, you see a similar kind of take on things. It's great, for sure. But, I mean, it's so crazy because I love those 3 films, and then you're like, oh, and he did Alien Resurrection.
And we're like, what happened? What went wrong?
Yeah, it's so bad, by comparison. Easily the worst of the Alien movies. But yeah,
no contest.
He has 3 films that are outstanding, and I do think Amelie is his masterpiece, though. I absolutely adore Amelie. I love that film so much. I've watched it twice, and it's one that I desperately want to teach in my class, but her 2 hobbies are, one, she likes to listen or she likes to wonder how many people are having orgasms at any given time. That little montage of people having orgasms makes it not something I can show in class, and I could skip that scene, but it's such an interesting quirk about her that I hate, like, taking it away at the same time.
I think that his characters are just really well written, and
and his visual style, though, it's just so stunning. The color palettes that he chooses and the way he presents the world, it's just so gorgeous. He's definitely a really talented director. I actually didn't see him on the list that I was using, that Wikipedia list, and I don't know.
I think it might be listed under the other guy
Mark
first.
Caro, possibly.
Yeah, if you look under 1981.
I tried just scanning the movie titles because, like, it didn't matter who the director was if I hadn't seen the movie. So I was just like looking at the movie titles, but I skimmed it really late, so I probably was like half asleep and passed right over it. But that's definitely a great pick. I'm a huge fan of his work. Yeah, and again, this was easily... I honestly think this is one of the hardest lists because I ended up going a lot older for the most part with my movies.
Mine are new. I'm
all over the place, actually, when I look at mine. But I could have filled... I've said this to Mike, that I could have filled my top 5 from directors in the last, like, 3 years. There are enough debuts that I'm just so blown away by. But I ended up going for more tried and true, like, directors who have since impressed me with something else, where some of the debuts haven't had a chance to impress me just yet. So I kept them off the list for now, but they're going to get honorable mentions later. But I love this pick, so definitely a great one. If you haven't seen Delicatessen, it was on Netflix, I think, when we watched it back for Movie Club. It may not be there now, but keep an eye out for it. It comes and goes on Netflix all the time.
I say, if you like black comedy, just go buy it.
Yeah, and you can listen to our episode of Berkreviews Movie Club, where we review Delicatessen, and also Alien Resurrection, and also Amelie. We've done all 3 of those movies. Heck. I'm pretty sure we did Delicatessen as a Movie Club episode. Early on. I know for sure we did Amelie and Alien Resurrection, because we did Alien Resurrection right before Alien Covenant came out, and neither of us liked it, so...
No, it was a sad day.
Alright, so Mike's number 4, I've never seen. I've already said the director's name, Amy Heckerling, who is a very talented director, who did, I guess more... She looks like she's got more writing credits that I'm familiar with, but she did Loser, which I'm a fan of. She directed Clueless, and the Clueless TV series, which is interesting. Look Who's Talking, Look Who's Talking 2, Johnny Dangerously with Michael Keaton, but her debut, and what's on Mike's list, is Fast Times at Ridgemont High from 1982, and a confession, I've never seen this movie.
I have.
So that's one for you already, Corey. And that was not one, that was the one I thought you might have seen that I wasn't guaranteeing, so... I still think you got 2 more that you have seen. Oh, you know what? In retrospect, I think maybe only 1. I just realized there's one that probably you have not seen that I am taking liberty of knowing I put a lot of effort into seeing. This movie is written by Cameron Crowe as well, so that's obviously got a pedigree there. 67 Metascore, 7.2 IMDb rating. A group of Southern California high school students are enjoying their most important subjects, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Stars Sean Penn, Jennifer Jason Leigh, which I did not realize Jennifer Jason Leigh was in this. That makes me want to watch it all the more. Judge Reinhold, and then some other people. But Mike has it as his number 4, and it's one that I know I should watch, but I just feel like it's so going to be 80s engrossed that I don't know that I'll latch on or not. So what do you think, Corey? You've seen this movie.
I've only seen it one time, and I was in high school. I kind of like some of the stuff around the movie that she had to do. I'm pretty sure she had to do some editing and take some stuff out so that it wasn't rated X.
Oh, wow.
I think. I could be wrong. It's been a long time since but they were like remastering the movie or something back when I was in high school, or releasing it. Something was going on where there was a lot of hubbub and talking about it. But like I said, that's a long time ago. Yeah. But I feel like it's a cool debut, and I didn't realize she made all those movies. I've seen pretty much all of those movies except for 1 or 2 that you mentioned.
And I didn't realize, I scrolled through the cast while you were talking, and Nick Cage was in this, and
oh yeah,
Forrest Whitaker.
Oh dang.
Yeah, that's the biggest curveball, I think, because I don't know how young he is here, if he's like old enough to still be a teacher in this movie, or if is he a student. I would imagine he's a student in 82, but I think I may have seen like this like on Comedy Central or something when I was like really young, you know, like edited for TV. But I it's one that I'm super familiar with, mind you. Like everyone talks about this movies when you look at the 80s, you know, big list of the party movies. This is definitely high up on that list, and it's just something that I've never sat and watched or looked to watch, you know. No offense, of course, to it, but it's it's something that I will eventually end up seeing or whatever, but just haven't got there yet. All right, my number 4 is a director who is fairly new. It's from he made his debut in 2008, and has since though been pretty recognized as a talented director, especially this past year, getting a few Oscar nominations. I went with Martin McDonagh and his directorial debut in Bruges. Which I think we did a movie club episode for.
I don't know. I've only seen it one time.
Then maybe not. I couldn't remember for sure if I just watched it on my own. I actually saw his second film first. I saw Seven Psychopaths, and I love that, especially because Sam Rockwell's in it, and I'm a huge Sam Rockwell fan. Christopher Walken in that movie also is great. Woody Harrelson's in that as well. And he does have a tendency to do that because his first film, In Bruges, stars Colin Farrell, Brendan Gleeson, and there he is, Ray Fiennes, and there's a few other people in there, but those are your three bigs. And Colin Farrell then will go on to do Seven Psychopaths, where the two actors from Seven Psychopaths would do his third feature film, which is Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, which is where he got a lot of Oscar nominations. But In Bruges it's so hard to believe that's a debut. It's so interestingly structured, and he, I believe, has written all of these as well, so that makes it even more impressive. The dialogue is witty, it's snappy. Colin Farrell is at the top of his game in Bruges. It's such a dark, funny movie because it's a movie about hitmen who are hiding out after a hit goes slightly awry, and him dealing with that, like the repercussions of it. There's so much there, and all three of his films have dark humor. Like I wouldn't say any of them are straight up comedies, but they all feature humor in the movies, although this one does list itself as a comedy crime drama. Three Billboards, I'd say, goes much heavier into the drama, but there's still moments where it's clearly meant to get a laugh, and he's just a really talented, original, clear, distinct voice in all of his films. You know it's a Martin McDonagh film when you watch them, and I really, really enjoy his work. So again, this one's from 2008, so I did get a little close, but I was so blown away by all three of his movies. I think each one kind of left me just staring at the screen when it ended, just like, wow, what did I just see? And they stick with you. Like, I remember distinctive scenes from this movie. Seven Psychopaths I saw several years ago. I mean, like right after it came out, I saw it, or right after it came out on Blu-ray or whatever, I rented it, and I've not forgotten several scenes from that movie because it's such an interesting story. It's very meta because Colin Farrell's character is a screenwriter, and just how everything ties together. Like what he's writing is also the movie that we're watching, but it's not, and it's crazy. And then Three Billboards I've seen twice in the theater and was really impressed with that film. So that's my number 4.
I didn't realize that was the same director, but I've seen In Bruges and obviously Three Billboards, which I thought was great. My number 4 is from 1994. I picked this movie up like I do a few during the Criterion sale at Barnes & Noble. And I was like, oh my god, this is directed by Danny Boyle, and I needed to see it. And I've only seen it one time, but I chose 1994 Shallow Grave, which this starts his, he ends up having a pretty long career with Ewan McGregor, acting in a good number of his films, but three roommates in Edinburgh decide to take in a new roommate to help with bills, and he ends up dying, and he has a lot of money, and it just shows all three of them turning against each other. Pretty funny, pretty dialogue heavy. I feel like you would probably enjoy it, but that's my number 4.
Probably. I'm a big fan of his style. I've yet to see a Danny Boyle film that I don't like at least a little bit, and so I totally think I should. I want to finish his filmography. He's got a few obscure ones that I haven't seen, and I've heard good things about that one. So
I haven't seen 127 Hours, and I don't really know if I need to.
I don't think I can. I am already not a big James Franco fan, and the premise of that film, while it is based on a true story, and it's a very, telling true story, mind you, like I get how one would be captivated by it. I don't know that I want to watch it. And I've actually seen part of the main scene of, like the climax of him.
Ugh.
Yeah, and I'm trying not to spoil a film that we're not actually talking about, but yeah, I don't know if I can sit through that scene, so I kind of am just like, nah, I'm good. Alright, Mike's going back to 1984. It's funny, because he almost, if this was from 1983, he'd be going 1981, 1982, 1983, but we're going with director Alex Cox. and his debut of Repo Man, starring our boy Harry Dean Stanton, Emilio Estevez, Tracy Walter, Olivia Barash, and I think that's the gist of the big names. I'll say Cy Richardson as well. I've only heard of this film. I've actually never seen it. But young punk Otto becomes a repo man after helping to steal a car and stumbles into a world of wackiness as a result. 75 Metascore, 6.9 IMDb user score. You know anything about this movie, Corey?
I bought it, but I haven't watched it yet.
Because of Harry Dean.
Also Criterion.
See,
I need to rethink that. You know what I mean? I don't know.
No, I get it. I'm guilty of it too. I have a lot of movies. I don't do it with Criterion, but only because I don't have a Barnes and Nobles like right next to me. Because if I was looking at the Criterions, like I'd probably snag more of those. But
you can get them online.
True, but there's like a buffer that keeps me from just grabbing them. Like the impulse buy online, I've trained to not impulse buy as much online because it is so easy to just one click.
It's true. I go in and I just pick up 2 or 3 of them at least once or twice. It's sad.
But usually you wait for the 50% off sale.
Yeah, and $20 for a Criterion Blu-ray. I'm feeling bad about that.
I just wish they would include a digital copy. That's the other thing that stops me from buying
I know. Them. Yeah, I would feel much better about it because, I don't know.
Yeah, well, because we don't know how long Blu-rays got left,
Yeah.
I don't think they'll be replaced by another physical medium, but given the trend of music, it's very likely that VHS is going to make a comeback here soon.
Please God, no. I still buy some cassettes, but I don't miss cassettes getting eaten in the player.
But the cassettes are coming back. Like bands are
I have a few.
Cassettes. And and then next thing I don't know, my daughter and wife went to I think they went to the Auburndale Flea Market last week. No, they were at on Tuesday they went to Vero because Taylor had like a waiver day, and they ended up at like a thrift shop. And they bought like 4 CDs. And I'm like, guys, we have a subscription to Google Play Music that has all of these albums on it. Like, there's no reason to have a CD.
There's something about being able to hold something in your hand. I totally see it with CDs. I need to sell all of mine. I don't even have a CD player. But I buy records. I understand, like, the sheer joy of being able to hold something in your hands and to look through the packaging that the band or whoever worked so hard on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I get it with a record, and I get it even with vintage stuff. More so than, like, buying modern bands releasing vinyl or whatever. That's fine. I can still get it, though. But CDs, there is a reason. My wife's FM radio has cut out in our car. We don't know. It appears to be like something with the antenna, and it's the old school. It's not the old school. It's the new antenna that's like on the rear window. And so I've been told that it can just go faulty, and it's not easy to replace because it's on the back window. And so as of right now, she doesn't have FM radio. She has apps on her phone that can do it, but I don't know. It's just she misses having like the radio. So I think having a CD that she can just put in the player without having to mess with her phone and stuff makes her happy. So I'm not completely criticizing, but it was like, guys, we have all of these, okay, but whatever.
Well, I was also reading recently, not to take over our top 5 movies, but I was reading an interview with a band or musician, Ed Rosty from Grizzly Bear, where he has like streaming services and he can download any album he wants to, but there's something about him having to go to iTunes or whatever service he uses and he has to buy it, and then he feels more what is that word? Like he spent money on it, like that particular album, and went out of his way to get it, and he feels more inclined to listen to it then. Which
I get that. And also I think that there is something to that, like the band knows, like the band gets more from you buying the album than just streaming it. Mm-hmm. Although I know they do get some, like, so much money per stream. So, like, the more you stream an album, the more money they are making, which is not true of a purchase. A purchase is a one-time, here's how much money you get. So I don't know which is actually better for the band at this point in their careers. But you could always do both, I guess. Buy it and then still stream it from your streaming service. But let's move on to my number 3. And my number 3 is interesting because if you look at my director's IMDb, he's got way more credits than this looking like his debut, but all of them are music videos. Ew. And it's director Spike Jonze, and his debut, which we watched for Movie Club again, that isn't an intentional pattern, but it does seem to be something that's happening, being John Malkovich. And
that's right.
This movie is an insanely ambitious debut. Granted, he'd done tons of music videos, and some of them are very, very impressive, including one of the most iconic videos is the Buddy Holly from Weezer. which
Oh.
that video pulls in Happy Days, and it's such a classic video at this point. But this was his first feature film, and written by Charlie Kaufman, which is actually why we watched it, because we were watching Charlie Kaufman stuff back then. And it stars John Cusack, Cameron Diaz, Catherine Keener, John Malkovich, of course, because it's about being John Malkovich. Even very young Octavia Spencer. And I was so kind of taken, like all of Kaufman's films have a surrealist vibe to it, but this one, it's so interesting how he films things and how he chooses to show things. And that being a director's first film is pretty impressive. Again, granted, he'd been working behind the camera for a long time making music videos, but still, like, transitioning that to a feature. And of course, he has since had some major successes outside of his music video career, because he also directed Her, a film that I'm a huge fan of as well. And I think he did Where the Wild Things Are, which I've not actually seen the version of it.
Love that book so much, and I did not like the movie, and I had such high hopes for it because Karen O from Yeah Yeah Yeahs did the soundtrack for it, and I'm forgetting his name right now, from The Sopranos, is one of the voices in it, and I feel like it's so hard to make something that's so beloved by so many people for like decades and do it justice.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, for sure. I do own it. Oh, he also directed Adaptation, which I've been wanting to watch. I think I just bought it, and I just haven't got to it yet. But that one is actually another Charlie Kaufman script, but the character is also Charlie Kaufman, but Nicolas Cage is playing Charlie Kaufman, trying to adapt a book that's supposed to be unadaptable. But so yeah, he's got quite the career, because again, even between all the few movies he's made, he has still been making music videos and other videos and shorts. But Her is so great, and I love the visual look of Her. And I think John Malkovich has, like, I really do like the aesthetic of Malkovich. It's very muted, and it feels old. Like, it feels like very lived in as a movie. Especially like their apartment. I don't know how much you remember the movie, but it really stuck with me because it was so weird and quirky.
Oh, and Cameron Diaz in that movie was fantastic.
Yeah, one of her best performances for sure. And yeah, I just, it's such a great film that to think this was his first feature, because it's very different than a music video. Like, you're telling a story in a music video, but obviously, I guess what lends itself to helping with film is with music video, you're almost having to do a silent film, because the music is on top of it, so you can't have dialogue usually. Although he does manage to fit some in with the Weezer video, but you know, the story, if you're telling a story visually, you don't get to narrate, you don't get to say anything other unless you're building it to the lyrics of the song. But that might lend itself to this weird quirky style that you see in Being John Malkovich, and in I assume Adaptation, but Her is very quiet at times. There's long pauses in that movie, and I don't know. I really appreciate his style, so he made my list. To be fair, it's more the movie that made my list, because I just think that movie's so awesome. Like, that it's a debut is just a shock.
Yeah, I wish I'd have known that when I watched it.
Yeah,
or been aware of it.
I didn't either, actually, because again, if you look at his IMDb credits, there's a bunch of stuff that comes before Being John Malkovich, but all of it says video or short. None of them are features. So. All right, Corey, we're on your number 3. What do you got?
Okay. So the oldest movie on my list is not this one, and it's only from 1991, but mine is from 2017, and I don't even feel bad about it. I chose Greta Gerwig, Lady Bird. This was her debut, wasn't it?
It is her official debut. She did, I believe she has an uncredited co-directing job before that, but if you look
it's uncredited.
It's uncredited, so I think, and that is one of my honorable mentions, so you're good in my eyes.
Perfect. I told you I was going to take some liberties. So I already had like 3 movies on my list picked out before I even looked at that list. But I love this movie so much. It was my number 2 movie last year. It actually, if we're going to be honest, it's tied with Big Sick. I just think it's great. And I wish that I had been more aware of her, like, acting work also. But we don't get a lot of coming-of-age movies about girls. And I don't know, this one just punched me in the gut. And I don't really know what to say about it.
I just
love it so much.
A revelation.
Oh, God. What?
I'm adding a movie to my my honorable mentions that I...
Oh, and I bet I know which one.
Yeah, possibly, but...
Yeah, I mean, we don't, like I said, we don't get a lot of coming-of-age movies about girls, but we are both fans of this one. I don't know if Mike has seen it, and I am pretty sure that all 3 of us love Juno. And I mean, so maybe we don't get a lot of them, But the two that come to mind first, I mean, they're fantastic. So at least we have that.
Yeah, and I love this movie. It was actually very hard. I left this off my top 5 for 2 reasons. One, I thought it was going to be on your list because I felt like you were going to go with newer stuff. And so I tried to leave anything too new off so that we wouldn't have too much overlap. And that's not a bad thing, mind you, that we have overlap. But I like to talk about other movies too, so I figured if you were going to talk about Lady Bird, I could just jump in, and at worst case, I would have it as an honorable mention that I would definitely spend time with, because I loved Lady Bird. I saw Lady Bird 3 times in the theater, which I don't do very often, although I have seen Tully 3 times, but to be fair, I saw Tully 3 times because of film festivals, not the normal theater situation, except I did go once to the regular theater, but I was so blown away with this film. Now, she does have a directing credit, but it's a co-directing credit from previous. But I looked up just her separately, not on that list, and there are people who are calling Lady Bird her debut, mainly because it's a film that got a lot of buzz, where her previous film definitely did not get this type of exposure. I mean, she got nominated for Best Director from this movie, so it's a big deal. Like, this movie was not a small film when it came down to it. It started off as a small film, but it got so much buzz and so much Oscar award nominations that people started finally seeing it, and it's one of my favorites from the year. I bought it immediately. My daughter has seen it twice already too, so it's an excellent film. Definitely a great pick and worthy of being on a top 5 list.
Thanks.
All right, so we're at number 2, and this was Mike's that I've seen, and when I first said that you had seen 2. I was thinking you had seen this, and now I don't think you've seen this. And it's also from 1984. So just to recap, Mike's movies are 1981, 82, 84, 84. So real close to being chronological here. It's Ethan and Joel Coen and their debut with Blood Simple, which features some really big actors. Frances McDormand's debut as well, actually.
Oh.
John Getz, Dan Hedaya, who you might know as the dad from Clueless. Emmett Walsh, who is in a bunch of stuff and is great in this movie, and that's the only big name actors. But McDormand is fantastic in this movie. Even early on, you see who she was in 3 Billboards and won for Best Actress at the Oscars this year. But you see the talent even in this early film. But I love Blood Simple. I bought it on the Criterion, and I ended up showing it to my advanced film class this year, and they also really enjoyed it. So it holds up. It is so well structured. It very much feels like you're watching 2 people who have been studying film for years craft a almost clinical example of what film can be. It's much, I would say it's cleaner in a lot of ways and feels a little more restrained than some of their later films when they get feeling more comfortable that they can explore and experiment, where this film just feels like a masterwork of what a film student would learn at a film school in the best way possible. It does not feel like a film school movie, but man, is it excellent, and it's just well crafted. The story is structured perfectly. It is just so fine-tuned. It just sets up for what you're going to get from the Coens for the rest of their time. I'm a huge fan of their films. I don't love every single one. I still haven't seen a couple. I still haven't seen Hudsucker Proxy, and I have not seen the one with Clooney and Catherine Zeta-Jones.
Oh, yeah.
I can't think
America's Sweetheart?
No. That's
No.
Kevin Cusack.
Dang.
I can't think of what that one is, but
I
that's
can
not a
see the
Coen film.
cover.
But
Okay.
it's, and then I did not like the Tom Hanks vehicle. Lady Killers, which is theirs, and I did see that when I was much younger, so maybe I'd like it if I watched it again. But from what I've read about it, most people that's one of their lesser films. But I was very up on their last film, Hail Caesar, which a lot of people hated on.
What? That was such a good movie.
Oh, it's so great, but
And funny.
that's Mike's number 2 though, Blood Simple, which I'm right. You have not seen this?
Nope.
Yeah, it's definitely if you're a Coen fan, it's definitely worth going back to. Then obviously you have Miller's Crossing. You just saw for the first time No Country for Old Men, which I love so much. True Grit is amazing. I'm a huge fan of Oh Brother Where Art Thou. Like I really, really love the Coens, so definitely worth going back and seeing where it all starts. All right. My number 2, I think you have seen, Corey. And it would probably be no surprise if you've been listening to the podcast, as I have made a lot of references to this man, especially as of late. Kevin Smith, his directorial debut with Clerks. I know a lot about this particular debut. I've read Kevin Smith's autobiography, where he discusses going to Clerks. There's actually a movie out now by, I can't think of the guy's name, but it's called Making Clerks, where it's kind of like Disaster Artist. It's, you know, that same idea, but with clerks. You know, it's much more low budget, no big names are behind it. But I know Kevin like authorized it and like signed things for the guy. I can't think of the guy's name right now, but I really want to see that movie. I'm hoping that it's going to get at least a VOD release, because they basically dramatized the whole process that Kevin Smith went through to make Clerks, which he's documented many times. He spent $60,000, I believe, of his own money renting equipment, and then he used his actual place of work, the Quick Stop in New Jersey, that had a video store adjacent, cast some local actors from a theater, and shot it in black and white to, I think, to reduce the cost or the need of lighting or something like that. And he then turned around and sold it at Sundance for $1 million. It's one of the largest turnarounds and kind of set the bar for the indie darling movement. Between him, Robert Rodriguez's El Mariachi, which has a Guinness World Record for the biggest turnaround, because he only made El Mariachi for $7,000.
Holy heck!
Yeah, and I believe sold it for $1 million. So he has the record for the highest grossing indie film, I think, of all time. Or something like that. Like, there's some weird wording to hit it, but it's actually in the Guinness World Records. And then Tarantino comes out of nowhere with his debut, which easily... I've actually not seen El Mariachi. I've seen his Desperado and Once Upon a Time in Mexico City, which are the trilogy, I think, together. They all tell, like, a cohesive story of some kind. But I haven't seen that one, so he's not on my list, although definitely deserving. And I tend to leave Tarantino off because it's such a expected answer. But I do love Reservoir Dogs, and it's definitely a really strong debut. But Clerks, for me, I still love Clerks. The acting is not great. There's a lot of, like, you can tell who's a professional actor and who's struggling. But the dialogue, it was, I think, the first time I ever saw a movie that felt like I was watching my friends on screen. Like, the way they speak to each other and how they talk and what they talk about. It was very much reflective of my world. And so I've always been a fan of Smith's movies. He has soured on me with the last one. I am not a fan of Yoga Hosers. I will defend Tusk. I think Tusk is fine for what it is. And I am.
I'm not a fan of his, but I like that movie.
Yeah, and I'm a big fan of Kevin in general, especially the self-made part. He saw Richard Linklater's Slackers, and this is according to his autobiography, and that inspired him to try to make movies with his friends. And you get Clerks, and Clerks holds up. And I love Mallrats. I love Chasing Amy, although that's not one I like to go back to frequently because it is a little bit more on the drama side, and it's a little heavy, it's a little long, and it's a little preachy at moments. And Joey Lauren Adams gets a little squealy when she gets mad, and I don't like her voice. But I love Dogma. Dogma is actually not available right now on Blu-ray for like an affordable price. So I'm hoping they're about to re-release it, and then. I am a fan of the satirical Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. But, a list of first-time directing films, Kevin Smith's going to be on it for me because he's just been such a influence in my own life. So that's my number 2.
I figured he was going to be on your list somewhere. Surprised it's not number 1.
Well, he was for a minute. I did make a change right before the episode of someone who I think, when I'm looking at my list and, like... I wait a lot. Like, some were, how much have they done after? Like, because the Coens were on my list, but I moved them off because Mike had them on his list, and I decided, I'm going to talk about them because Mike's not here, so I'll move them off my list. But what the Coens have done since their debut is so powerful. Same thing with Tarantino. I mean, Tarantino has a style, and Wes Anderson with Bottle Rocket easily could be on my list because his style is established with Bottle Rocket, and he's only gotten better with each film. And then there's like Raimi, who he came out the box swinging so hard that I feel like he set the bar so high, eventually he was going to fall short of it, and I think that's where he's at in his career now. And, there's several like that. And Kevin Smith built his empire because of this movie, this big risk. He put his own money into this film. If it had failed, who knows what he would do, but instead it succeeded, and he's built his whole career based on that, and I respect that immensely. He didn't need a studio system, and although he was a part of Miramax and unfortunately a part of the Harvey Weinstein empire that has crumbled to the ground, Kevin has, that's the other thing I love about Kevin Smith is he has like no skeletons. Like, it seems like everything about him is just on Front Street, and he's just the most down-to-earth guy. And you may or may not like the type of guy he is, but he's going to show you who he is. And despite like all these allegations that have come out, especially with other people around Weinstein, Smith has been never discussed outside of him apologizing and feeling guilty for being a part of the Weinstein empire. But otherwise, there's been no accusations leveled at him. And considering how vulgar he can be, it wouldn't have shocked me if there had been some that came out. Just not even that he tried anything, but just that he said something that offended somebody and, or whatever. And that hasn't even been a thing because he's just genuinely this guy. And, I don't mean to dwell. And obviously I am a fanboy when it comes to Smith. I am still willing to criticize. I think I've proven that if you read my Yoga Hosers review, I will criticize him like I'll criticize anybody else's films, but he is somebody I look up to and admire in many ways. So I'll let you go now with your number 2.
Okay. Moving on. No, I'm kidding. So my number 2 is new also, and I think that in defense of all of that, I feel like I haven't always been aware of directors. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? For sure. So this another woman on my list.
Oh, great. Woo!
And everybody knows that I'm such a fan of this film. I chose 2014's The Babadook, and here we are, and it's Mother's Day, and it's taking everything in me not to share a still from the movie with Happy Mother's Day.
You totally should.
I should, and then I'll make everyone mad. But I'm going with The Babadook from directed by Jennifer Kent, and I just got a little nervous because apparently this is her feature film directorial debut, but she based this film off of an earlier short that she made called Monster in 2005.
This still counts. Though.
Okay, yes, but I didn't at first. I was like, oh my god, is it another? You know what I mean? I thought she was just going through and she has more of a budget and remade the movie or whatever. But I love this movie so much. I so desperately want to be scared, and I know that sounds so stupid, but I just think that it's fun to be scared when you're not actually in, any, no chance of you actually being harmed, I guess. Mm-hmm. But I don't get scared when I watch movies, and this movie, I was one of 3 people in the movie theater. The hairs on my arm were standing up, and I was genuinely creeped out. I loved it so much that as soon as it was available, I had to buy it, and I made Bill watch it, and Bill was actually very surprised. But I just love everything about this film, and I love that it's directed and written by a woman. I'm so excited that she's making another movie. I'm kind of glad that I think that she was trying to direct Wonder Woman, which would have been good because it's such a big budget movie, but I just feel like she's smarter than that.
Oh, hold on now.
Let's
not insult Patty Jenkins.
No. I love Wonder Woman, but I just feel like I don't know how to just explain it.
I get what you're saying.
I just think that she can do much more with a film than just I don't know.
It is sad to see the speed of her film turnaround because it looks like she has a film set to come out this year called The Nightingale. Or it may already be. I don't know. It says 2019.
No, I think she's still working on it. Is what she's currently filming her second film.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so, it's crazy that there's 4 years between, and they're still filming it, so it may not come out this year, even though it currently says that it is, but she's got 3 on her list, though. Alice and Frida Forever, Whoever Brought Me Here, and The Nightingale are all listed as directing. So those could be in production, or just maybe in talks, still not officially doing them yet, but this film is one that grew on me the farther away I've been since I watched it. Like, the more I think back to it, the more I'm like, man, that really was great. Horror and I have a weird relationship anyways. I want the movies to scare me, and a lot of times if they don't, I don't connect with them. And I've hated some of the most popular horror films, so I am the fact that I really enjoy this one and that I actually bought it for my classroom too is it says something at least about my taste, I guess. So, yeah, great pick, actually.
Thanks, and now I feel like I was insulting to Patty Jenkins, and that was not my intention. I just feel like I don't know. I feel like you watch The Babadook and a lot of people don't see eye to eye on what it's about, and I still don't understand why he was like the gay pride symbol. I don't know what movie they were watching, because I don't feel like there's anything.
Yeah, no, I don't know.
It was like really big last year or the year before. I just didn't understand it because you know what I think about the movie and what I believe it's about. But
which I think is accurate reading. The more I've looked into it, the more I think you are spot on with that. I don't know. That's interesting. Let's move. We're down to number ones, and
gritty.
I'm sure you've seen Mike's number 1. Director Richard Kelly debuts with Donnie Darko in 2001. Metascore 88, 8.1. We've definitely talked about this film on this podcast before. Jake Gyllenhaal, Jenna Malone, Mary McDonnell, Maggie Gyllenhaal, of course, Holmes Osborne, Patrick Swayze, Drew Barrymore, James Duvall. I mean, this movie's got tons and tons of people. And I didn't actually realize it was his debut. Until Mike had it on his list. Which is not saying that he's wrong or anything. I just somehow overlooked this one. He has another film in front of it called Visceral Matter, but I'm thinking that this was a indie film that didn't go anywhere, and it's barely a feature. It's only 48 minutes. My understanding, according to the Academy, a feature film is 45 minutes or more, so he just made that. Since then, this is a good example of a director who may have peaked too fast, because it goes Donnie Darko, and then 5 years go by before he directs Southland Tales, which I think has a bit of a cult following, but is not a big, well-received film. And then he did 2009's The Box with James Marsden and Cameron Diaz, which looked really bad in the trailer, so I have not seen it. And so, yeah, his career has not been following the strength of his first film of Donnie Darko. But Donnie Darko has a huge cult following. A lot of people love this movie, so it makes perfect sense that it would be on Mike's list.
I need to rewatch it.
I do too. I've only seen it the one time, and I actually really want to watch the director's cut because I hear it explains some things a little more, like the book in the movie. It gets into more details in the book, I believe. I went for a debut. The one that made the most sense for me to have as my number one was George A. Romero for Night of the Living Dead, because this film did so many things that when you think that it's his first feature film, it's insane. It's insane to think. Now, it's definitely debatable, the quality of some of his later work, how good they are, how bad they are. But his early stuff, and the first four, I would say, zombie movies, first three, for sure, that he does, Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, and Day of the Dead, are all fantastic to me. Especially, though, Dawn and Night of. But Night of the Living Dead did so many things. Obviously, making a black protagonist at the time in 1968 was not the norm. How it deals with the racism of the time is outstanding in the film itself. And most importantly, think of the legacy of zombies. How important zombies are to our culture right now in terms of pop culture. They are one of the most money-making properties that a film or TV person can get involved with. And they are still using Romero's formula from 1968. So when you think that this was his debut, talk about leaving a legacy for yourself. You know, that this movie sets so much tonally for the culture that we're going to live in. It shows a brilliant mind who is able to craft a really compelling story, and one that just holds up for a long, long time. And he did pass last year, I believe. But if you get a chance, there's a really cool documentary. I can't even think of what it's called now, but it's about him making Night of the Living Dead. It's really, really cool. I watched it last year or the year before on Netflix. And he did... there's some other movies. The Crazies was also influential in 1973. And then, again, I love Dawn of the Dead. And one of your favorites, Creepshow from 1982.
Creepshow. And I'm pretty sure that he worked on Creepshow 2 also, which I'm really surprised. Maybe he was not just a producer, but I was looking at that. I'm kind of...
I will say, I like Land of the Dead, but then, like, Diary of the Dead and Survival of the Dead are not good. And Land of the Dead... I didn't
watch Survival.
Yeah, I saw both. Not a fan of either. Land of the Dead's not perfect, mind you, but it's enjoyable, where, like, the other two I just mentioned are kind of tough to watch. But Romero, I was also told, and I've not fact-checked this, but I was told that Fred Rogers, or Mr. Rogers, he was a camera person for the Mr. Rogers show, and he told Fred Rogers that he wanted to make films, and Fred Rogers, being Fred Rogers, told him, you should do it. So I have not fact-checked that. I got that from a Harvard psychologist, though, and that Harvard psychologist who told me that story is a co-worker of another Harvard psychologist that I know through my job, and I know for a fact that other one was very close personal friends with George Romero, and so I feel like that's an accurate story. I don't know again, I've not fact-checked it, but I feel like my sources are only like 2 away from the actual person, so I feel pretty confident that that's a legit thing, that Fred Rogers is partly responsible for Romero making feature films. So
that's awesome.
Yes, it is, because I am a huge Fred Rogers fan right now. But we are at your number one, Corey. What do you have?
Okay, so I feel like I'm kind of surprised, but I have 2007's Murder Party by Jeremy Saulnier. Which, of course, I don't feel like any of mine are a big surprise, but I This was not his first movie that I watched. That was Blue Ruin, which I rewatched recently and is still just as good. Sometimes when I hype up movies so much to myself and I love them so much and I go back and I watch them and I'm a little disappointed. So that didn't happen and that's good. But Murder Party, I went back to watch. I don't think it's streaming anywhere. You have to buy it, but I think it's only like $7 or $8 on Amazon and it's totally worth it. Has my boy Macon Claire in it.
Yes.
But I love Halloween. I love that he finds this, this random invitation on the street for a Halloween party, and it's really they're just trying to get somebody to murder for their art school project, which is so ridiculous. But
and that's
I
the funniest part is that they're not sociopaths. They're like hipsters who think it'll be.
Yeah. I just love it so much. It's so funny. I don't know.
And again, it's definitely a dark comedy. But yeah, I considered that one. I think what hurts me with that is I didn't see it first, and I saw what he then does, and like the other movies are so great that and Murder Party's great. Don't get me wrong, it's a very good debut. But like if in my head, Saulnier was introduced to me with Green Room, and if Green Room was his debut, that would probably be my number one on this list for sure. But I love Blue Ruin's I think a better movie than Green Room, but it's not as fun to watch. Like Green Room is way more engaging. Blue Ruin is a slow burn that pays off immensely. But and I'm not saying slow burn in a bad way, but it is not like Green Room is nonstop on the edge of your seat. Holy crap, what's going to happen from
oh my god, I can't breathe right now.
15 minutes in, yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm a huge Saulnier fan. I can't wait to see his new movie this year. I hope it's great. I don't have any honorable mentions for Mike, but I have a bunch for myself, so that will work. But that is our top 5 directorial debut, folks. Let's go through some honorable mentions. So I mentioned earlier that I could have easily made my list just from the last 5 years. And so Jordan Peele, Get Out, is an amazing directorial debut that he won Best Original Screenplay for. He's basically got a check to make whatever movie he wants, which is exciting because he had opportunities to go into like big blockbuster type stuff, and instead he's making another horror film. And they just announced, I think it's called Us, but now I feel like that might be wrong. But the poster's out now, and it's a teaser poster. It's like a silhouette on a gray background. It's very, very minimalistic, but awesome at the same time because can't wait to see what he does next because I was so blown away by that. One I have seen that most people have not seen as a directorial debut because it's from this year is Bo Burnham's 8th Grade, which is phenomenal.
I saw the trailer for that.
Oh,
it was
Corey.
before oh geez, what movie? Not Isle of Dogs. It was before
Totally, probably.
Yeah, totally. And it looks so good. I've been hearing a little bit of buzz about it though anyway.
Oh yeah. When we saw I Feel Pretty, actually, they had the 8th Grade trailer, and the trailer made me cry again. Like I was like in tears from the trailer because of how great that movie is.
Also, here we are from like a girl's perspective, and I don't know about all the other girls, but 8th grade is when it got real hard. Like it was already hard, but there was just like this huge sense of even more awkwardness and being unsure of myself, and so I just feel like holy heck, well, like the trailer blew me away.
What's so interesting is that Bo Burnham is a guy, but he wrote it with a female perspective, and from every account that I've heard, and from I'm a parent of an 8th grader right now. He nailed it, and from the horse's mouth, the actress was at South by Southwest with him, and I got to hear a Q&A with them, and she basically said he nailed it. And she's terrific. The casting is perfect. If his debut is anything for his future, we are in for some amazing films from this guy. His debut is so incredible. Probably deserves to be in my top 5, to be honest. I'm going to go with another film from South by Southwest that I saw. And I will admit a little bias because I've talked to this director a few times and she is very cool. And hopefully we're going to have her on the podcast in August. But her, Augustine Frizzle, her debut film, Never Going Back, is a buddy comedy with 2 female high school age, like 17-year-old females. It's very much in the vein of Friday. And I loved it. I thought it was great. She's actually currently busy directing a new series on HBO that she got right after this film debuted at South by. And her movie is playing at the, I think there's another Sundance festival, but it's like a Eastern Sundance. It's something weird. It's some like variation on Sundance. Never Going Back is going to be there as well. But just those are the only ones I'm going to spend this much time with. I'm going to power through. I mentioned Greta Gerwig with your review. She's on my honorable mentions. Ryan Coogler, who debuted with Fruitvale Station, who's now super famous for Black Panther. Alex Garland for Ex Machina, which is what a debut, right? Like, to come out with that. I am a big fan of Zach Braff's style because I am into that whole indie dad type movie. But Garden State, his debut, I think really sets the tone for his style. Tom McCarthy, I can't remember what he did later, but I actually really like Station Agent. Matthew Vaughn, Layer Cake is a freaking awesome film. That his other films are the Kingsman films are great. Ryan Johnson, Brick, which you didn't really like, I loved, but he just did Star Wars, so another great example of what you can go. And then Tom Hanks, his debut is That Thing You Do, which seems a little unfair, of course, because he had worked on a whole bunch of movies long before he directed one. So he definitely knew the ins and outs of the industry, and it shows. That Thing You Do is a really great example of a directorial debut of an actor who turned director. So, and I just thought of Ben Affleck's The Town would be also really great.
That was a good movie.
Yeah, I really like The Town a whole lot. So, all right, do you have any honorable mentions?
Yes, I have George A. Romero, Night of the Living Dead. Toby Hooper, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which who was I talking about that movie with recently? And we're like, and it went downhill because I tried to watch like the Toolbox Murders and John Hughes, 16 Candles, even though that was not my favorite John Hughes movie. Tim Burton, Pee-wee's Big Adventure. I don't know about you, but I grew up on Pee-wee, and I did too. And I rewatched that movie I think last year, and it's just so great. And then I have Tom Hanks, That Thing You Do.
Oh, very nice. Since you didn't mention, I do want to throw George Miller for Mad Max.
Yeah.
I do like the original. It's nowhere near as good as Road Warrior or Fury Road, but it sets the tone for that style. And F. Gary Grant for directing Friday, and then he would go on to direct some other really influential films. But I'm a big fan of Friday. I think that is one of my favorite comedies from the 90s. And I think it might be the best pot-related comedy. Because like it may not be the nonstop laughing, like Half Baked is like almost nonstop laughter, but it doesn't really have like a message behind it. Where Friday has like some really positive story points to it, and Ice Cube wrote that, and I really like that film, so I wanted to throw him on there. I'm definitely more of a fan of the film than I am of F. Gary Grant. No offense to F. Gary Grant, I'm just not as familiar. And then I wanted David Fincher, but his debut is Alien 3. And I don't like that movie enough to put it on my like top 5, but I am a big David Fincher fan, so he started there. He started with Alien 3.
Heck.
Yep. So that is our episode, folks. We will be back in 2 weeks with another top 5 movies, and an important one, because it'll be our episode number 100. Hopefully it'll be the whole crew, Mike, Corey, and myself, as we break down our next topic, which I think we're going to hold off on announcing what the list is since it's a big episode, but it will have something to do with double zeros, I'll say that. You can email us at contact@berkreviews.com. Keep up with my reviews and anyone else's reviews at berkreviews.com. We have random contributions from time to time. And you can follow us on social media. I'm at Berkreviews. Corey?
At Corey R Star, 2 R's on the end.
And Mike is at Server Monkey, like a web server, not a person who brings you hors d'oeuvres. And I think that is our episode. So until next time, keep watching movies.